Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
I was deep in it, gaming on Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Unfolding the screen made it twice as big and so immersive, I kinda lost myself. Might have trolled a little too close to the sun. Someone in the chat told me to touch grass, so I took my Z Fold 7 outside and kept playing. Still won, got a tan, and a nice little reset. Powerful processor, realistic graphics, you stay locked in, streak stays alive. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
All right, we are back with another fantastic episode. Benjamin Lee here. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you may be. We have another excellent guest that's going to help us to have a I can do mindset. He has a great story. He's passionate about exercise, about health, about fitness. Dr. James D. Walter is on the show today. Dr. James Walter is a PhD, and he's the founder and president of the Institute for the Preservation of Health. And I'm so thankful to have him on the show. He said that I can call him Jim. So Jim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Benjamin. Thanks. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I can do is awesome. Love that mantra. And as we'll see when we get into this, that's a lot about what my message is, what you can't do, but what you can do. And so we'll delve into that a lot more, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have a connection. I think it's been, Jim, probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 months. We had an initial conversation, I think in November, December last year. So I appreciate your patience, and certainly looking forward to learning more from you. We were talking a little bit about Marvel movies and my background. I was just saying, as you can see, I'm a big Marvel fan, and that's where I Can Do came from, where I have an implantable cardioverter defibrillator. So I got that when I was 30 years old, and that was a big shock about just, how my life was going to change with this genetic heart condition. But I'm really thankful for my mom. With she was just always positive. She still is, even today, and that's been a tremendous blessing. And so, it's always interesting just how different things can impact us and can have a lasting impact. And I want to start with you with that, because you have a really powerful story, and I'd like for you to share your personal story, really where this origin story for you began to getting you to this point of creating this institute and just being passionate about helping other people be in the best health as possible.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So, unfortunately, the foundation of it is based on a premature death from my father. He died at age 45 from his third heart attack. Now, as you mentioned, I'm trained as a cardiovascular exercise physiologist. And so I spent 10 years of my career doing preventive and rehabilitative cardiology. And it was an awesome opportunity. You would take people with really bad levels of heart disease and rehabilitate them and allow them to re-enter the world, if you will, to some degree, with a level of confidence that due to this damage, I'm not done and you can do more. But what always bothered me in thinking about that is that we're a step late. We're rehabilitating. Why can't we prevent? And we did that. We had a program for that as well. And that's where I really wanted people to think. And then I made a change. I left the rehab world and I entered into the pharmaceutical industry. But what never left me was this feeling that people need to and can do more to be able to have an impact and an outcome on their own health. And the answer to that is what we were doing in rehab and what we talked about. You did earlier, you got your exercise in.
Yeah.
And that's the exercise.
Yeah.
And so what the problem with that, though, is that if you were to take a moment right now and pull up the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website, you'd find out that more than half of Americans do not exercise. A full 25%, this is by the CDC, are completely inactive, sedentary. And then depending on how you read in between the data, it could be as many as 60% that really are not very active. And so it's weighed on me. And I start to think, if we've got such profound evidence demonstrating the benefits of exercise, and we've consistently shown this and people don't do it, are perhaps we sending the wrong message? And so I then take that and go back to my father and I look at his life and, in his short life, he managed to have 8 children at such an early age. And, so you think about his day, he would get up, he was a small business owner, he owned his own business. And so he would go to work all day and then come home and maybe try to spend some time with his kids, have dinner with the family, try to get off to one of our sporting events or practices, come home, help us with the homework and maybe have to do some work on his own. And then it's off to bed. So, when I thought about his daily life and think about people that I talk with, that you talk with, and it's like, okay, but when can I find the time to exercise? It's hard. And so I want to be very clear. I would love and would want people to exercise on a regular basis. The CDC also tells us that that's 150 minutes or more of moderate to vigorous physical activity during the course of the day. But sometimes people just don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
Or they don't have the motivation to do it. So as we'll get into here, then I started to think, okay, what would be acceptable to people? What could everybody do? And so that's where my message has changed, is to try to address the masses is, can you just simply move more? And so if I were to tell you, please don't, but if I were to tell you to get up out of your chair right now, you would have just moved more.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't recognize that there's a lot of ways that we can build more movement into our day. And that's what I'd like to get people to do, because that can also, and I'll be happy to share some data, that shows that has health benefits. But if I could get others, like I wish my father had, to be able to move more, perhaps it could have had implications for his health. Now, this is a while ago, and, he lived during the typical meat and potatoes type diet, and there were other risk factors that he had.
Right.
But it could have made a difference. And so, yeah, that's what got me started. And I was 13 years old when my father died. I had a sister who was 1. And I'd just rather not see children lose a parent at such a young age. And so that's what's driving me to try to get people to do more. And if it's not exercise, it's at least to begin by moving more throughout your day.
Yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability. Number one, that really resonates with me, with my son. Just thinking about him being the same age, and my dad died when he was young as well, 59 years old. You mentioned how that really stuck with you throughout the years in your professional career and development and progress. When did you get to that point, Jim, where you're like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to be the one to help make this change. So you were 13 when that tragedy happened. What period of your life next? Was that 10 years, 20 years? Um, Walk us through that where
Yeah.
you just got to that point of, yes, now is the time.
So it was probably when I got into college.
Okay.
So in addition to being young when my father died, and my family, well, let me say it this way. I was the first person in my family to ever go to college.
Gotcha.
I didn't know what that was like. When I started looking into college and then picking courses, in the book it said, you only have to go on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm like, what about Tuesday and Thursday? I mean, I've always gone to school every day of the week. And so I just didn't understand. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so then I got in and I started taking courses. And then I learned about this like exercise physiology stuff. And I was like, okay, what's all that about? And to make a long story short, what I learned in a relatively short period of time is that exercise can be a very potent form of medicine. Now, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but this goes back, when I started in college in the early 1980s. Okay.
Okay.
So then I started to think, all right. And then did I ponder? So you think of health and medicine, you usually think of physicians. Did I ponder doing that? And I did, but I'll be honest, perhaps I was scared because I didn't know this college thing, let alone medical school.
Yeah.
But when I started to learn that through lifestyle change and specifically the incorporation of exercise and being an athlete, I was a fairly good basketball player. I played into college, played baseball, played, tennis and other things as well.
Were you point guard, forward, center?
I was I was largely the shooting guard.
Okay.
Sometimes in high school, we did have Adrian, who was my counterpart there. When he was out of the game, I would then take over point guard responsibilities. But yeah, I back in those days, it was unfortunately before the 3-point line, but I could shoot it pretty well and did that. So, but then, I sort of started to look that through sport and through fun and then through exercise, you can make a difference. And so as I learned more about exercise physiology, that's when I realized, that you could have an impact. And then it got confirmed, once I finished as I was going on through my master's and my PhD. And then when I started working with patients in the rehab, that all got confirmed. And then that's where my thinking started, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, about why do we wait this long? Why do we wait to rehabilitate? And that's why I formed the company that I did called the Institute for the Preservation of Health. Except for an unfortunate few, most of us are born into this world with health.
Yeah.
And so instead of having to rehabilitate it, why don't we just preserve it? And we can do that. The ability to preserve is largely driven by lifestyle. And, that's where it becomes the responsibility of the parent to try to impart the right lifestyle on their children. And then for the children, when they can, to start to develop the right habits for themselves. And, then life hits and we get busy and we go to school and we get married and we have kids and we get derailed. So I get it. I do get it. And so that's why for the many, many people within the United States that have the trouble finding the time to exercise, the time or the motivation, perhaps this idea of just moving more. And I'll get into a little bit more what I mean by that, because a lot of people don't understand what my message is.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit, moving more. I like that idea. I'm curious, and you can push back on this. Do people that you've worked with, experienced, seen, do they have like an all or nothing mindset that puts them in a trap of, well, I didn't do anything today, so I'll just start all over again next week, or what's the point of keep going, of keeping, keep going? Or is it, well, this idea of moving more, so are you telling me that, 5 extra steps, if I get out of my chair, if I just walk around a few extra minutes a day, that's actually going to make a big impact? What is that friction that people are experiencing based upon your expertise and what you've just witnessed throughout the years? And then share with us, what exactly does that look like for moving more?
Yes. So it's all of the above.
Okay.
Some people just, I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
I don't have the time. I'm not motivated. I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that's exercise. And then there's others that, do some activity, some mild activity, or do find ways to move. But then there's these barriers, these limitations that we put on ourselves for these ways to go about moving. So if I were to say to you, Benjamin, give me some examples of things that you could do to build, and I'll do that.
Okay.
Give me one or two examples of things that you've heard about how you can build more movement into your day.
Okay. 1 or 2 examples. Great question. One is park your car a little bit further when you go to the grocery store.
Right.
A second one would be take the stairs. A third one I just thought about would be, well, just getting outside and mow the lawn. You're going to get some steps doing that.
Yep.
Walk your dog. You could walk your dog a few times a day. I know at the office, something that a lot of people are talking about, they're suggesting, sitting is almost like the new cigarette smoking, right? Of just the impact of just sitting all day. So getting a standing desk or walking around while you're in the office.
Awesome. Thank you. And you went further than a lot of people. Most people get stuck at parking the car further and taking the steps instead of the elevator.
Yeah.
And that's because of obstacles, we place on ourselves. And so what I'm trying to do is open up people's minds to ways that they can build more movement into your day. So you're in the office, right? A stand-up desk would be great, okay? And then when you're in the office, when it comes time to use the restroom, never use a restroom on the floor that you work on. And never fill up your water bottle on the floor that you work on. Or find the furthest one that you can. When it's time to get your mail or your newspaper in the morning and it's right outside your front door, can you go out the side door and walk around instead? And you hit the nail on the head, cut your lawn. Well, and by the way, trade in your tractor mower for a push mower.
That's a workout. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, I practice what I preach. So, I've got not a big piece of property. I just live in a standard neighborhood and stuff. Quarter-acre piece of property here. I've got a push mower. Yeah. And I tell my neighbors, I say, you'll never catch me on one of those things. Because what I like to my mindset is I don't want a machine to do the work for me that I can do if it's physically, motivated. All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to, that's not a good example. I was going to say, I'm not going to try to generate heat to be able to cook something. I'm going to let the oven do that. But when it comes to where I can do something, so I'm not going to use, the escalator either, because that's a machine doing the work. I'd rather do the work. I'm going to take the steps. I've been approached by people, Jim, but I work on the 22nd floor. Do you really expect me to take 22 flights of stairs? No. But can you take
yes. I was going to say, yeah, take the stairs, man. That's your workout for the entire day.
Maybe eventually.
Okay.
But why don't you start by taking the elevator to the 20th floor and then get off? See, these are the things that people don't think about. And so that's the obstacles that I'm trying to remove when I talk to audiences and when I talk to people.
Yeah.
And I do it myself all the time. I would take my son to get his hair cut before he was able to drive. And I'd just sit in the chair for 15 or 20 minutes while the stylist cut his hair. And then I realized, Jim, why are you sitting here? And it was in a shopping center. So I got up and I walked around the shopping center.
Yeah.
And so these are where then we can build. I like to say re-engineer our day. Big word there. Re-engineer your day. So that you can then move more. Now, you asked me before, will that make a difference? And yes, it does. Yes, it does. An article from a journal called the Mayo Clinic Proceedings, which you've probably heard of the Mayo Clinic. It's one of the many journals that they published. And it wasn't long ago. It was in 2020. And it cited the simple act of going from sitting to standing, not once, but throughout your day, resulted in small but statistically significant decreases in fasting blood sugar and body fat mass. Now, that's just going from sitting to standing. That's not even incorporating a lot of these move more moments. And so will any one of these, and I just referred to something that I call them move more moments.
Gotcha.
A moment where you can move more, where you replace being sedentary with movement. Any one of them, taking 2 flights of steps a day, is that going to make a difference in your health? No, probably not. But if you do that, if you go out your side door, if you cut your lawn, if you refill your water bottle on a different floor or use a restroom on a different floor, or many of these other suggestions that I offer to people, cumulatively, over time, they can make a difference.
Yeah. Excellent tips. You are a storyteller, Jim. I like what one person said. Stories give data a soul. So people hear a lot of data, 20%, 30%, 1 in 4. When I was in pharmaceutical sales, we had the posters, we had all the brochures and all of that. It always hits differently when it happens to you, whether it's your father or my father who had cancer, or for me, I had a blood clot in my right coronary artery, or whatever the situation may be. I'm curious, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Do you have a story that just seems to resonate with people to help them to understand the significance of everything you're saying, or a story that maybe someone shared with you in one of your presentations or meetings that you've shared that, sometimes stories, it just clicks and it's like, oh, yes, that makes sense. Can you expound upon that or share a story?
Yeah, I can. And I'll go back a long time ago to when
Please.
I was doing rehabilitation.
Okay.
And one of the patients who was that guy, that nicest guy in the world, just a true gentleman. He came into, after suffering a massive heart attack. He was in his early 60s. And he came into the program, was just wonderful to work with. But he had a psychological issue that I hope I helped him with. And I don't know what it was. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to call it depression or something like that. But he told me on more than one occasion, he said, Jim, I don't understand why this happened to me. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I can't remember if he was a non-drinker or a very light drinker, to the point where the drinking would actually be beneficial to him. He was a family man. He was a religious man. He was a small business owner. He was very successful. He was a family man. He did everything right. So why did he have a massive heart attack? He couldn't come to grips with that I've done everything right. I get it when people don't do this stuff right, perhaps, and he wasn't trying to push these on others, but maybe they're more subject to a heart attack. But why did I have it? And really the only thing that I could tell him, I'm just going to make up a name. I'm going to call him Len. So I would be having these conversations with Len, and the only thing that I could tell him was, listen, I hear you. And what I'm here to do is to tell you that if you do things that we ask of you to do in this program, we can't take away the fact that you've had a heart attack, but we can give you comfort and confidence in moving forward that you can continue on doing all these things, with the rest of your life. But here was the kicker that I tried to tell him was that, and had you not done all that you have over your 60 years of life, let's just say in the controllable years, so in the last 40 years of your life, you might have been in this program 25 years ago. And it's hard for people to grasp that a lot, Benjamin, because, if you think about high cholesterol, you don't feel that. It's just a number in your blood test. Even something that some people may perceive, but not really, high blood pressure, people don't feel that. Sometimes there might be some kind of a reaction, but a lot of the things that we do, people don't feel. And so we feel that we're fine. We feel that we're okay. Your health is something that you need to take care of every single day. Every single day. You should invest in it. I would argue your health is the most important asset that you have. You can't live a family life as well as you'd like to if you don't have your health.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this. I'll ask you to think about this, but
Okay.
you might not be able to give spiritually what you'd like if you don't have that good health.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you'll live a bad life, but you might not be able to do as much as you want to do.
Yeah.
Because of that.
I agree with that. I was talking to a preacher friend of mine, and we were talking about that last week, I believe, just about exercise and being healthy. And you and I have a lot of similarities. I majored in kinesiology. I was in pharmaceutical sales. I know you're in a different part, but I view my exercise now, Jim, like a part-time job. So I view it like a part-time job just because, if I don't get it in, it does have an impact, and it will have an impact, with the stressful kind of career that preaching entails. But it also, I think, demonstrates self-control and discipline, which I think is important as well for spiritual leaders with that. So, I totally agree with that.
Let me give you one more relatively quick story. And I actually have a prop right next to me that I didn't plant, but it just happens to be here. And this is why I believe you need to take care of your health every single day. So let's just say I were to send you 2 beautiful glass-blown hearts. They're beautiful. And you're going to take them and you're going to hang them up. And you're going to take one and you're going to hang it by a piece of string. Just for the sake of the story, it's just going to be a piece of string, not some beautiful dainty chain, but a piece of string. And you're going to hang one in your living room and you're going to hang a second one outside by a tree, from a tree limb. And you get to look at them for days, weeks, months, years, and they're beautiful. The things appear to be the same. But what you don't realize is what's happening over time and what the difference is between the two of those.
Okay.
So my prop,
all right,
here's a piece of string, right?
Okay.
It's more of a rope, but here's a piece of string. Here's the end of it, right? What is a piece of string made up of? It's made up of a whole bunch of individual fibers, as you can see here. And so you've got these 2 hearts hanging by this piece of string. And as I said, they both look beautiful to you. But what you don't realize is there's a difference. The one outside versus the one inside is exposed to the elements, the wind, the rain, the heat, and the cold. And let's equate those things to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, physical inactivity. And so what you can't see, because the heart is still hanging, is that some of these fibers might be fraying and breaking, but the heart is still hanging. You're still holding on until you get to that critical point where a single fiber or a couple of these aren't going to be enough to hold that heart. And that's going to be broken. And so that's why you got to take care of this every single day to not let those fibers break. And that's what's happening, with our health during the course of the day, and why moving more will help protect and preserve some of those fibers from fraying so that you can have a longer, healthier life, which is really what everybody wants.
I love that. Excellent. Thank you so much. That's a great analogy, illustration. And yeah, sometimes we're all kind of hanging on by a thread, so we need to take it seriously.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about the institute that you are the founder of, the Preservation of Health. What does that look like? What does that entail? What services? Where can people find this and connect with you?
Yeah. So you may have heard, because it in fact may be a spiritual story, but there's a story of the rocking chair test, and the rocking chair test is, an elderly gentleman or an elderly lady. Just picture one of those southern houses with a beautiful porch, and you're sitting there and you're reflecting on your life at 80 years old and all the great things that you did, and all the family accomplishments and the impact that you've had on the world and in people and stuff like that. And then you're also sitting there thinking about regrets. What maybe did I want to do that I didn't do? I started this company called the Institute for the Preservation of Health almost 30 years ago because I believed in that concept of preservation, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't. I've had the company. I still have it. I had plans for it, and I let life get in the way, especially when I had to make the transition from the rehabilitation to the pharmaceutical world, which, as you know, involves travel and being away from home and a whole bunch of other time commitments. And I, several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I'm thinking, I'm not quite there for the rocking chair test yet, but I'm thinking, I still haven't done this. And it's an important message. And I know it can make a difference in the lives of people. I've got to do it. And as you said, I've been told before, I am a storyteller. And that's really how you get messages across, is through stories of glass blown hearts and pieces of string and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I got to do something. I've got to do something. So although being a very comfortable speaker and having given hundreds of scientific presentations, I decided to take a very high-level public speaking course because I wanted to make sure. Yeah, it was. I'm drawing a blank. Heroic public speaking.
I've heard of heroic public speaking. Yeah, that's on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, and now they're just referred to as heroic. And what it taught me was there is a difference between speaking in front of people, giving a presentation, if you will, and public speaking. And public speaking is basically a performance. It involves a presentation. I share information, I share data with you, it's over. A public speaking, when you do it as a performance, it involves all aspects of talking to people. We've done it here. You asked me to tell the story of my father. My father died about 50 years ago. It's still hard for me to talk about that. I didn't. Well, I may have a little bit, but I get choked up in my voice to this day. So in public speaking, it's about emotion. It's about bringing in some of those hard times, but it's also producing a smile and having some fun with a piece of rope or other stories that I like to tell when I give these presentations. And I was just thinking, Jim, you're running out of time. You still got life and energy and stuff. You got to do this. So I did the public speaking course. I've developed a website. Have I done a lot in this realm yet? Not yet. But here's where I'm hoping that exposure on podcasts like yours and others, that people might hear this and say, we need somebody like that. Yeah. Because it brings a relevant message and what I believe to be in a very inspirational tone. through stories and lessons and stuff like that. So that's what I've done now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create my second career.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to the day that I'm able to completely retire from the pharmaceutical industry, which I hope is in the very near future, and then just go off on this path and be able to freely go out and try to get in front of more and more people to share this message. And so that's what the Institute for the Preservation of Health will be all about.
Well, I'm honored that you're on this podcast, and what you just said, I'm running out of time. When I call that a power statement. So when I teach in public speaking, coaching, and things like that, that just really resonates with me. And I think it resonates with a lot of people. So thank you for what you're doing. And don't stop, man. Keep going. The world needs this message, this move more movement. And that's very inspiring. Let's talk a little bit about, you didn't reveal your age. So let me see if I can pull some other things out here with the next few minutes before we start to wrap up here. What do people need to know about the science of what's happening in exercise and heart health in the next, 5 to 10 years? There's different things that a lot of people are tapping into, code therapy, heat therapy, sauna therapy. There's a variety of things out there. Any words of wisdom that, hey, you need to keep your finger on the pulse of this, or you need to start implementing this? What could you share with that?
The most important message that I would share with people is to look to do something that you're willing to do. So to your point, there's an enormous amount of things. Who is it? The actor Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. He's done one. Part 2 is coming out where he goes into these health things. And in one of the original versions, he did the cold immersion stuff, right?
In the ocean or something like that. That was crazy. I saw that episode. Very
cold water. And I've because of that, I've actually looked into other things. And there's a lot of research about that. What is it that you can do? That's where even exercise physiologists, and that's why they're important, because, if we were to say to exercise, people think, okay, I can run. I don't like to run. You can ride a bike. Maybe I can do that. Swim. No, I'm not a swimmer. But there's a whole bunch of other things that people can do. And that's the important aspect of what exercise physiology is about, is finding something that people will do. And so that would be the most important thing. Listen, it's not going to change. There is profound and consistent research over the last 5 or 6 decades that says and suggests that exercise is arguably the most potent form of medicine known to mankind that we'll ever see. And yet, as I said, people don't do it.
Yeah.
So that's when I'm suggesting, well, look, just move more. You already said something that I was going to say. It's been alluded to in articles and magazines and stuff like that already, that sitting is the next smoking. Let me tell you, in 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a profound amount of data to support that. There's not a lot right now. There's some, but it's just going to get piled on. So don't wait for 10 years. Look for the ability to move more now. And I've shared 5 or 6 different ideas on this. What I also encourage people when I speak to them is just put on your thinking cap, eliminate barriers, because some of my suggestions might not work for you. If you live in an apartment building, you're not cutting your lawn. So that's not going to work for you.
That's right.
But
that's
what
right.
can work for you? And that's what I try to do is take the blinders off of people to allow them to think, oh, okay, I get it. Side door versus front door. Walk when I drop my child off versus sitting there. And restrooms on different floors, filling water bottles on different floors. By the way, you fill your water bottle more often, you're going to have to use the restroom more often. So you get more movement that way.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
So,
yeah.
Benjamin, more and more is going to come.
Okay.
Find something that works for you. But more importantly, look for these little subtle ways that you can replace being sedentary with movement as a starting point. And what my hope is if people start to do that, then maybe they'll be closer to that ability to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that obstacle of 150 minutes, per day of moderate to vigorous physical activity, maybe that won't seem so far off.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you have any recommendations of websites, reputable websites where people can go if they want to do their own research on their own with exercise and things like that? There's so much noise that's out there, the social media influencers and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Any websites you might be able to recommend or subscription magazines that someone wants to elevate and step up their game with fitness, health, science that you could share?
Yeah. So an organization that when I was doing the rehab, there was no need for me to be involved when I made the transition to the pharmaceutical industry. But the American College of Sports Medicine is arguably the leading organization. You're shaking your head as a
ACSM.
kinesiologist.
Yeah,
you know of that. There's also an organization called the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit more practically oriented. ACSM is where you'll find the data, the science, the research. The Institute of Lifestyle Medicine will have some suggestions of things like mine on there and how you can incorporate not just exercise, but proper nutrition, avoidance of smoking, all the other risk factors and some ways to do that. And they're more science-based, credible organizations. I'm going to put a plug in for myself, JimWalterSpeaks.com. It's small, but it's mighty at this point. And from there, people can just get ideas. I post these move more moments that I update all the time because I come up with new ones every day. And because I look for them myself, I take the blinders off myself. So if people are able to, look into those three to get started. I don't like to give lots of suggestions because then you get lost in all your suggestions and people tend to do nothing. So there's a couple that people can turn to.
I love books. I collect books, read them. What book recommendations? It could be any genre. I'm curious that you want to share.
It's interesting. For me, it's more about, and what I learned a lot about was inspirational stuff. All right. And that's what drives me. And so some of those things like, are you familiar with Zig Ziglar?
I am.
Yeah. So, I forget the name. Oh, I know the name of the book, but I forget it. But one of the quotes from one of his books, and it's a mantra of mine that I'm using to drive myself. He says that you can get everything in life you want if you help enough others get what they want. See you at the top. So that's his.
I love that.
Tony Robbins, I know that sometimes he's somewhat of a polarizing figure. People love him. Some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been able to look at the message, not necessarily the person, and he's about boundless limits. I mean, allow yourself to do what you want. Don't hold yourself to self-imposed limitations. Look beyond them, give it a try.
Yeah.
And then, again, in the spirit of, my wife drove me to this. There's a book over my shoulder here. It's called Think Again. And it's by Adam Grant. He's a professor
Yes, I've
at the
heard of that.
University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And Think Again, it's like, it's so commonsensical. You know, if I were to tell you, you know, to exercise, that you need to exercise 40 minutes a day, and you say, okay, Jim, great, thanks. And then in 3 months, I were to tell you, no, you know, now you got to exercise 80 minutes a day. You might say, well, Jim, you're a hypocrite. You just told us 40, you know, now you're telling us 80. And in Think Again, what Adam Grant tells us is no, you've just learned. Mm. So your way of going about things has changed because you've learned. And that's not a hypocrite. That's smart. So I've managed lots of teams here in the pharmaceutical industry, and it's messages like that that have helped me. So if you haven't, Benjamin, that's a book that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, I have not read that. I am familiar with Adam Grant, and I'll have to definitely get that. One of the things I like to say with books, I had a preacher years ago, he would say, it's like eating fish, eat the meat, spit out the bones, right? So, you know, like what you were kind of talking about, right, with the message and things like that. Yep. So I'm listening to right now the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, which is a pretty fascinating book. So, you know, a lot of books I can't always endorse everything, but nonetheless, I'm learning a lot from that book. And I made some assumptions about that book. I was like, nah, I'm not going to read it, but it's pretty detailed with a lot of different things dealing with relationships. So yeah, I'm a big Marvel fan, as you can see, big book fan. My mom would take me to the library growing up. We didn't have a lot of money back then, but we did have books, and books just give you so much data and wisdom from other people that have poured themselves into these books. One of the biggest ones that had a big impact on me in college was Body for Life by Bill Phillips. You know, he put together that 12-week fitness program, which so many people mimicked. And I was using his EAS products, Metrics products, and eventually in 2016, 2017, was in a workout group with him, and then eventually got to speak at 2 of his camps. So it all started with a book, and you never know, you know, where a book may take you. So Jim, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your zeal, your passion for health and for life, and what you mentioned about Zig Ziglar's quote about helping other people. And that's exactly what you're doing. I love this I can do mindset and mentality. Leave us or close us out with a word of wisdom.
Yeah, I think I would just have to go back to what my message is about.
Yeah.
Move more. Just take the barriers off and move more. And then that perpetuate itself into more and more movement. And you'll be better off for it.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much, Jim, for being on the show.
Benjamin, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.